Hello, everybody. Welcome to the international version of Everything in Moderation. This is episode 3, and Danny and I are here today to discuss what is it? What are we discussing today?
Okay, so today we're going to be discussing monetary poverty. So we're going to try to break it down into why poverty happens and why it happens in different nations. So we're just going to take a couple looks at either examples of nations, I guessing, or example of theory that nations have even created, you know, to either solve poverty or attempt to solve poverty. No nation has ever solved poverty, but they're definitely gonna. A lot of them have been trying hard.
It's all about trying to make it like the least amount as possible. Um,
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
I think that what we could start with is defining what poverty is. So there's two types of poverty. There's absolute poverty, and then there's relative poverty. Relative poverty is probably the one you hear about more, like on a day-to-day basis. Um, but first, absolute poverty is anyone that makes less, like that uses more than like uses less than $1.90 per day. That was defined by the World Bank in 2015. I don't think that figure has changed since. But um, so when you think about that, of like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if everyone's familiar with that, it's like a triangle. Um, the bottom level is needs, so it's food, shelter, and water. So that would be like absolute poverty. They wouldn't be able to even afford that. Um, so relative poverty is based on where you live. So like a person making $5 a day in Africa isn't necessarily going to be able to live in Germany, but he'll be able to live in Africa depending on where he lives. So just wanted to get that out of the way. So now we know our two difference. Um, I'm thinking that we're probably going to be focusing. Which one do you think we're going to be focusing on more today?
I mean, I think we should jump into a lot of topics. I
Mm-hmm.
should think we should discuss certain nations. So we could take let's do America real quick, just because that's the easiest for us.
Mm-hmm.
So America has has deep poverty, like everybody has are homeless, and then there's like you said, relative poverty. And like a good example of that, people that live in Mississippi, like literally bottom of the barrel, that is the worst poverty level in the United States. And when you go, you can really go and type in Mississippi poverty. That just type that in on Google, and you'll find people living in almost there's shack homes. The towns are pretty they're just flat, and they have a lot of brick homes. But another thing you see in the United States, just because this country has a history of slavery, is that black people, and even now, are still, you know, suffering from ages ago because their families, did not have money back then. They were little slaves. So a lot of people don't realize that you accumulate wealth, I guess, people and just social status, just as you grow. It's just like civilization, right? So I just wanted to talk about that real quick, in terms of how that's kind of a factor in America.
Mm-hmm.
And then another factor is our increasing wealth inequality, which is very high right now. So I just gonna have to say that that is a breaking point in a lot of countries, but America, it really doesn't matter, just because the quality of life here is great. So there's not really much a person can really complain about unless you're living in certain impoverished states in America or really cities, towns. But I would say that's the breakdown of America. What would you say?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Rising cost of living and not a proportional uptick in minimum wage. We discussed that in a regular Everything in Moderation episode about how a minimum wage was supposed to account for cost of living rising, and it hasn't done so since the 1960s. Um, in terms of that, like continuously upping the minimum wage isn't going to solve the problem. It's a band-aid solution. So it's you have to more control the costs of things. Um, so now, like, I want to look at that in terms of like a worldwide perspective. Do you think that that's more the reason why there's poverty, or do you think that it's more of like a um, government exploitation of people? I mean, there's a bunch of different reasons why.
So what you just described it as, it is in fact a band-aid. So as you increase, because look at money, how it's changed in America's history, and how relative that is to our current minimum wage. So you can even say our minimum wage right now is $15, just because what, you're in New Jersey. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's $15 now. Like that compared to like certain other like countries and how they do it. I'm not saying a lot of countries. There's certain countries and how they do it where your you know cost of living almost matches that. For some people they can't really do it. Another thing is also like a lot of people don't realize that you're getting taxed on more things that you're getting, you know, that you think you are. Like healthcare, you have to pay for that, don't you?
Hmm.
That's a tax. Like think of this like when you account for your taxes as well when you're not you're a citizen, because if you're not taking this into account, how much are you actually paying? You know, you have to look at these factors when living in any country.
Hmm. So, I mean, if we look at the most of my research, again, like how I mentioned before, was centered around Africa. I don't know what African taxes are like, but I'm sure that that contributes to the issues. Um, I think I just want to delve right into Africa as a whole.
Okay.
Um, so, I have a question for you. How important is foreign aid to these African countries that are impoverished?
Uh, in terms of United States to
Yeah,
these.
it could be
So
like it's even like Portugal has really good ties with like Angola, for example,
okay,
because like
right.
it's like a former colony. So,
So my big theory when it comes to Africa is a lot of countries are going to start coming to Africa because like there's cobalt mines and that is a material that's going to become like very prominent like right now just because of like how big batteries are getting and
mhm,
how we are changing from gas to electric. And we need more of that substance. In China, what they're doing is they're grabbing up a lot of that in Africa right now through business. We have certain businesses that jump in there, but not a lot. So what America does sometimes is like start wars and then either like go collect some oil or just kind of make money off of the private military industrial complex. But like that's just how we do things here.
mhm. So, just to reiterate the question, how important is foreign aid to the countries? Do you think it's important, or do you think it's
It's going to be.
yeah?
I don't in America right now to them. No, I
Mhm.
don't. I don't think a lot of them are even. They're just going to send humanitarian aid if they're still like involved in that. Which I don't really don't know if they are now. They probably will be. Um, but they're not going to do anything like actually help these countries. They'll rather sooner than later go and try to revolt these countries and get people on their side.
Mhm. Um, what you said about humanitarian aid, I actually looked into how humanitarian aid could actually um, now, for people listening, hear me out on this. Listen to my full thought. So, how humanitarian aid could actually hurt the local businesses in Africa. Because if you understand economics just on a basic standpoint, it's hard to compete with a zero cost business, right? So, anyone will tell you that like this, like small businesses are the backbone of any economy. Um, but again, if you don't supply this aid, then many people will be starving or naked. So what do you do? It's a hard situation because the local businesses not growing isn't necessarily like that's not a good thing. But then letting people suffer in the meantime is not a good thing either.
That's a
So
great point. So how would you suggest you solve that without that current kind of humanitarian aid?
Um,
I have a great solution, but I don't think you can even enact it in a like place like Africa, just because it's very like a lot of the states there are very unstable,
mhm.
and the people who lead their states is a whole other culture where like a lot of them are corrupt. Like go look at the corruption index right now. I'll tell you most of the countries in Africa are completely red just because
Yeah.
it's kind of like fuck down there. But
I mean, that's kind of what you would need. You would need stability. And, that's the thing. Like, you kind of know what you need to do, but you can't, like, you don't know how to make stability happen. Like you said, like the United States getting involved and having like a revolt happen or per se, that doesn't necessarily bring stability. It creates even
yeah,
more. And then you don't know if the new regime is going to be just like the last one or just go completely in the opposite way, in a bad way. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, it's like it's a tough situation. I mean, there's a reason why poverty has not been solved yet. There's many smarter minds than us too working on it. And
Very. There's some extremely smart minds working on them, and I have some. I would like to like talk about some research I found in Finland, and they did also a little experiment in Canada as well.
mhm,
Where how you remember how Andrew Yang was like preaching about universal basic income? And everybody was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Free money like that? What do you?" Like everybody was like, "What the hell?" Like I was like, "Nah, I'm not with this." As soon as I heard about it, and then I did more research into it, and I saw what they're doing in Finland, and it was like completely nuts, right? So they just take like little like towns, and then they give like people that are like on this poverty line just a certain amount of money. And this is why I wanted to phrase this as like the mathematics of poverty. Like they really kind of like solve this, right? Because what what creates like poverty, right? What do people that are impoverished have to deal with every day? Bills. That they're just living paycheck to paycheck, so they don't have extra money to actually do shit with, right?
mhm,
So you give these people that are already impoverished a stipend every like it's basically like getting a paycheck, right?
mhm.
And you have this free space where you can actually like go maybe save up, maybe see if you can go get a car, maybe see if you can go to college, which usually you know isn't really possible in the United States, but in Finland it's not that
Yeah.
costly, just because education not as costly that over there. But the margins weren't like so like explosive, right? But the people there definitely were happier, and the thing is they felt like they were getting more on their money than taxes. They're not just like, oh, I'm getting fucking nothing. I think it's a great principle to try out. Whether it would work in America is I don't know. I'm not going to be a fortune teller or like say this is going to happen, and I don't think it's going to work really in Africa right now. But I think if your government is strong enough, you could try something like that. But and again, and also in other economies, it just doesn't work. You can't do it in some economies.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point, and definitely, I don't know if you saw in your research, but this would the Finnish workers, they continue to work while getting this stipend.
Yep.
Did you find that they um I mean, the main criticism of like UBI is that like if you gave them that money, they wouldn't necessarily like work as many hours or work as hard. Do you think that that would lead to more motivation because now they have like that financial security, a little like,
Well, a lot of them. I mean, figure this. Like, imagine if you were in this role right now,
Mhm.
right? Imagine you're getting $1,000. Are you honestly like as you're impoverished? Are you just gonna sit in your ass and basically even lose more money, or are you gonna go work and be like, hey, shit, I have money now. Like this is nice. Like, and there are a lot of people already have jobs also, so they're not going to be like quitting them anytime soon just because I'm getting another $1,000. Like it's not that much money, but it's not pocket change. You
Mhm.
know that's why it works. You can't give people too much money, or else they're like But if you give people some floating space, it might work. I mean, that's what the research shows. And these people are either gaining work. I'm not saying by huge margins, like maybe it's like 6 to 8%. They're gaining work. They're not going down.
That's good. Yeah.
But that's also Finland. You'd have to try that in the United States. You'd try that in any country that you want to even do that. And you just got to do it locally, see how it works. And then you'll know, and you have to test it out everywhere else because America's a big country.
That's why I always say that, um, something like that, it works really, really well in like a small local environment where you could make sure that the money is getting to those people, you know. Um, a funny story about like the stimulus checks that were offered like during the pandemic. Um, my grandpa got one and he's been dead for 3 years. So
Yeah.
like my mom returned it, but the it's just the fact that someone who actually might have needed that did not, like, let's say that we just decided to keep it, they would have not have gotten that because whoever was distributing it did not check the records.
You want to see something funny?
Yeah.
I want you, or I want any viewer here to go and see other countries what they got during the coronavirus, and then you're gonna be like, "What the fuck? What?" As soon as I looked it up, I was like, "What? We get $1,200.
Uh-huh.
They get monthly paychecks, so they're up to probably like 10 grand. Some countries, not all. Like I'd say, like France is a good example, and
Yeah.
Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two countries that if you're in there right now and you have when this coronavirus shit was happening, they're kind of like pretty okay now, but not really. They're kind of like where a lot of other countries besides us are. But
Yeah, so that the only difference was they like compensated for the salary, correct? Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. I don't know if like that could have do you think that could have worked in the United States?
maybe we would definitely have to just see.
Yeah. Do you think that was that money they received every week or was it monthly or
So it's like a paycheck. So like imagine it happening 2 times a month.
Mhm.
You know, it's almost like you're a salaried employee of the government being a citizen.
Got it. And then the way that you would um prove that like you make however much money in a month is like you submit like tax documents and income statements, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And they're not gonna like. This is only for people that need it. If you're not at this level, you're not getting the money just because
Got it.
we don't
So
need
it
the
is something
system.
you have to apply for.
Yeah. I mean, listen. There's an argument out there that America is socialist right now, but in the other way, they're socialist towards corporations. I mean, just look at where the money actually got directed when it came to coronavirus.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what else to say about that. Like talk about Yeezy getting like I don't even know how much money he got. Imagine getting that much money just being a citizen. You probably get $1 million, but thanks, bro. Like that. I don't like that.
No. I mean, we
Guess
always
that's me as a citizen, me paying taxes. That's all I'm saying.
we always talk about how like the United States is the hub of capitalism, right? But in the sense of like all the government bailouts of like companies and banks and stuff, it's not because capitalism would just let them fail. That's like what like a true free form capitalism would look like. So like it's weird. Like the United States likes to it's like the United States dabbles in like business affairs, but in like a positive way for the businesses.
They're like a little bit libertarian,
Yeah.
but sorry, gotta take care of these guys.
um so going back to Africa, we had the stability issue. I mean, finding what a solution to that would be very intriguing. I don't know how that would work, but I did find out that there is a regional economic integration that's in the works. So African, it's called the AFCFTA. It's the African Continental Free Trade Area. So it's headquartered in Accra, Ghana. It was actually set to um, go into effect in July, but due to the pandemic, they put it back. So it's actually going to happen in January 1st. So that's very exciting for them. I wrote down a couple notes about it, so I'm just going to read it word for word. So the goal is to create a single market, deepening the economic integration of the continent, establish a liberalized market through multiple rounds of negotiations, aid the movement of capital and people, facilitating investment, move towards the establishment of a future continental customs union, achieve sustainable and inclusive socioeconomic development, gender equality, and structural transformations within member states, enhance competitiveness of member states within Africa and in the global market, encourage industrial development through diversification and regional value chain development, agricultural development, and food security. And finally, resolve challenges of multiple and overlapping memberships. So I was reading just a little bit about that. I don't know the inner workings of it too well, other than what I just read, but it sounds pretty good. It sounds like it could be a good thing for Africa. Free trade has certainly helped in areas of more on like the lower end. It's like there's been a lot of different regional economic integrations in like Latin America. Mercosur is like one of those. So yeah, I mean, like having not paying tariffs and taxes on like exporting and importing of goods is definitely a good thing for the health of a nation. And exactly what it said. I think it was, excuse me for a moment. Move towards a future. It says something about globalized, making them a more of like a globalized player, like more suitable for foreign investments, which is important because the reason why like foreign direct investors, right? FDI. So the whole point is that they want to put their money into something where they know that it's a safe investment and it could be a lucrative one too. So the issue with Africa is because there's so much political instability, is that they don't want to get involved because they don't necessarily know what policies are going to be enacted. So they don't know what their investment is going to look like in 5, 10 years. So that's what scares away a lot of people for Africa. As for the agreement itself, I'm actually going to pull up who is in
real
it.
Quick, I can just interject here.
Yeah, sure.
Too long. When it comes to Africa, I feel like one thing they really need to do is build up all their infrastructure. And one thing that is happening right now, nations, I won't say it's happening soon, Africa, but I will say in the next 20 years it will. Africa will start getting integrated like India is into like a full on like broadband network because their shit is just like all over the place. You'll find like internet in Africa, but it'll be extremely slow and it's not even like what we have here in the United States. Like you'd be completely surprised. You most likely won't even get self-service in some areas. So once they put that infrastructure there, they can do more stuff. And that just happens after their actual infrastructure investment. But that will happen regardless because I know they did that with India, Google. They did that with India. They just gave them buckets of money, to set up all this stuff up. And that's how nations grow, at least nowadays. It's companies.
So just on what you said there was Google supplied it was Google?
Yeah, there's
So Google,
other companies, Facebook
sure.
also, like all the big tech companies, they're hopping all over that India area because they want to gain control of that area immediately because you see what Comcast does out here to Americans.
So how would, supplying that money to the India, and if they were to do that towards Africa, how would they know that their money is going to what they wanted it to? That's like, I think that would be a major concern of some of these tech companies, and especially why they haven't done it already.
Look at India. India is like a weird example because India there's a huge amount of like people in poverty, like
Yeah.
huge, right? And then there's also like a decently sized people that are just not. It's not like the United States where it's kind of like separated like a lot. It's just one or the other, really.
Hmm.
Um, but there's a lot of people there, and even if you're impoverished in India, you can still probably get a cell phone. You just have to find it. It's not that hard, you know. They have a decent infrastructure. It's just that they're dealing with crippling poverty, but they have a lot of people as well.
Got it. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. I got um, Wikipedia is showing what the deal is looking like right now. So this is the African Continental Free Trade Area agreement. Um, so in terms of signatures, looking very good. Um, Declaration, good. I mean, there's this document too that I was looking at. Basically, every country that ratified it deposited their um, contribution. So out of 55 of the countries, 54 of them signed. Which one was the one that didn't sign? Eritrea. Um, I don't know what their political climate is like, but
Is that a new country?
what?
Is that a new country? I've never heard about that one.
I don't know. Um, right. So then the ratification: Burkina Faso, Chad, Cote d'Ivoire, Congo, Djibouti, Egypt, Equatorial Guinea, Ethiopia, Gabon, Gambia, Ghana, Kenya. Wait, no, wait, what was it? That's Guinea. Okay. Kenya, Mali, Mauritania, Mauritius, Namibia, Niger, Rwanda, South Africa, Sahrawi. I, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever heard of that one. Senegal, Sierra Leone, um, Sao Tome and Principe, Eswatini, Eswat. No, I'm sorry, Eswat. Oh yeah, I said that right. Okay. Togo, and Uganda and Zimbabwe. So those were the ones that ratified, and all the ones that I just mentioned were the same ones that this deposited. So, I mean, hey, that's looking pretty good so far. I think that should be considered a little victory for now. I think it's underrated to say that many of the countries that did not ratify it yet maybe want to see how it works first. Want to see like before they put their contribution in, like what they would get out of a certain thing, see how it affects other countries' infrastructure and just overall economy. What are your immediate thoughts about that?
Well, I think Africa might confederate in the future, or at least I hope, just because there's such like a big like continent, and they have a lot of territory. And a lot of them have like similar cultures.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's funny because are you familiar with Mansa Musa?
no,
Okay, so Mansa Musa was like the wealthiest person in the world at some point, and he was where was he from? He was from, doesn't really say, but he was like the largest producer of gold like in um the early 1300s of Africa, and like he literally like went on like a parade with like elephants and stuff, and just like gave out like gold and shit to people like around Africa. Um, he conquered like 24 cities, and hold on, I want to see what his net worth would be like. Um, so his peak net worth at the time, like of like if it was compared to like last year, was $418 billion, and that was in like the early 1300s.
Wow, that's way
Um,
too much money.
yeah, I mean the guy was just swimming in gold, bro. Like he's
Imagine.
um. So you think that uh Africa would sort of like merge almost in a way, not
No,
merge.
I hope certain countries confederate. I don't think that's going to happen for a while though. But I feel like as globalization happens throughout a country, that just naturally happens. You know.
Do you think the trade agreement will contribute to this at all?
Yeah, I mean, any trade agreement would really anything to like build really their infrastructure as a nation, and like have good policy too, not
Yeah.
stupid policy. Because like there's countries that still do really badly in that area. America just did really badly in the economic policy for a couple of years, but it's okay. It
You
happens
don't think
sometimes.
it's always a learning process, unfortunately, at the expense of many people.
Yeah.
Um, is there any other things that you'd like to touch on in terms of poverty and what other mathematics and figures behind it?
I would just like to say or end on this. It's all a numbers game. I'm like, there's really think of it like this. There's a certain amount of money in one country for people to have, and it all flows. It all flows in different areas. So that's why you see, in certain areas, you see Mississippi. It's kind of shot down there. A lot of like people in poverty. It's because money's not flowing around like it is in New Jersey. There's a lot of people with cash there, not in Mississippi. So it's definitely a learning process.
And then those same people in Mississippi, if you threw them in Africa with like, their current like
they'd
income and
be they'd
stuff,
be perfect.
yeah,
They'd
they're
be
doing
way
pretty well.
better off. Just say just because the quality of life in America, you really can't like get anywhere else. Now in Mississippi, it can get bad, but I wouldn't say it's anywhere near. There's definitely African places or people in countries in Africa where there's cities and they're beautiful, absolutely
Yeah,
stunning,
absolutely.
right? But it's also you see on the other side, there's just freaking a whole bunch of poverty.
Yeah. It's
That's
like
usually what
past
happens when you're like in Africa, or at least like there's areas like near South Africa as well.
it's like past those cities, depending on where you are in Africa, is like there's not much.
Right.
Um, it's like the cities do well. Um, and the people that live in the cities are probably living pretty okay lives. Um, but yeah. So in terms of my conclusion, you always have to look at the numbers, like Danny said. It's not a simple fix. A lot of what we preach here and try to explain to all of our viewers is that all of these problems are multifaceted. And if one thing away, like how I mentioned that, the humanitarian aid takes away from the local business, but then you're taking away humanitarian aid to the people that need it. It's not easy. It's not easy. So I think that just the most paramount factor for Africa and Africans is to find a stability in their government. Obviously, there's not much to do in terms of ousting dictatorial regimes, but the next best thing is hopefully people are foreign investors, and you see this now, build schools, drive up education, make the African student more equipped to take on the problems that face their nation individually. So I think once you do that, there's going to be a lot education is always the answer. We always say this here. We don't know everything. We probably say some things that are incorrect at times. But again, this is just like this is bro talk. You know, we're just going through it. It's like a campfire. But yeah, we like analyzing the problem, seeing what we can do to fix it. And if it's a simple fix, then we're just like, why hasn't anyone done this yet? But then again, that brings us back to the thing. Couple further research we do, we find that there is like other reasons why certain things can't happen and why governments don't necessarily do it as quickly. So, like you said, like Finland, like almost. I know that the headline for like articles and stuff, Finland eliminates poverty.
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen like that. It's eliminate poverty. I'll tell you, a lot of people will definitely be freaking saying that after this, though. That's what you have to watch out for. You got before you go out and preach about something, you best test it in your own spot before you go and try to do it, because Finland's a different country than America.
Yeah. Different different political structure, different
Citizens.
yes, different citizens.
Citizens. That's the main point when it comes to it.
Definitely. All right, that's all we have for you lovely viewers today. Stay tuned. Next Friday, we have another international episode coming out. And as always, we have the Wednesday episodes about US politics. Dan, if you ever want to jump in on those, feel free.
Okay, sounds good.
Otherwise, have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy yourselves.
Peace.
See ya.